Thursday was your day off, according to the schedule. An odd day that most would not be happy with. However, the day you'd met Touya at the pier was a Wednesday. This meant, though you stayed up late on said Wednesday, you got to sleep in on the Thursday without a care of work. Wednesday nights at the pier became their thing. Despite Touya's objection, he'd still showed up at the pier almost every week. Sometimes early, sometimes late, but there in flesh and blood. The nights when he couldn't make it were unfortunate. Touya and you had come to a silent agreement not to share contact information. The exchange would be too risky in their already precarious situation. However, that also meant that you sat for hours at the pier, shivering in the night's chill, and worrying over why Touya had not made it. His missing nights were rare, but hero work intercepted their hangouts often on your side. It wasn't uncommon for heroes to be requested on their off days, and previously you hadn't minded. However, now, missing pier nights stressed you out enough so that most days when you were forced into a fight, you escaped the hospital after. You take off to the pier, praying Touya had not left yet, and you hadn't just run all the way for nothing. On one said night, you arrived, freshly bandaged and huffing from strain. Touya had been lying on the pier with a white packet on his side. He glanced over, his eyes gliding your frame silently, before he swiftly took the packet from one side of him to the other. Was about to start without you, he muttered. You sink down onto crossed legs in front of it. What you get? You asked excitedly, a little surprised by Touya bringing you food. It was the first time. Nothing special, just ramen, he said from his place on the floor. You quickly fished for the chopsticks and opened the container. The smell of a warm meal comforting after the day you'd had. Itadakimasu, you say cheerfully, and begin shoveling noodles in your mouth. In between bites, Touya mentions, Saw you on the news. You're a pretty good hero. Thanks, you say through stuffed cheeks. Seems like you got hurt pretty bad, he comments, casually. But when you look up, you catch intense blue eyeing your bandages. You swallow and smile bashfully. No, not too bad. Not the worst I've had, but a little worse than most. That's why I'm late. Had to wait to sneak out of the hospital. Hero doctors are very strict. Too bad, Touya says nonchalantly. Had your favorite here earlier, but I ate it because you were taking too long. You narrow your eyes at him skeptically. How would you even know my favorites after all these years? He flicks his gaze over to you, calmly staring and waiting for you to realize. You smack your head when you do. Fucking hero articles. He chuckles lightly before facing the cloudy night sky again. You move to take another bite, but pause. Hold on. That article was a while ago. So? Touya asked. Was his tone tight? So, have you been keeping up with me? You question, a little excitement flooding your chest. Touya strategically avoids your gaze. Here and there, he mumbles. You grin mischievously. Bet you have a little shrine to me, you tease. He flicks an irritable glare your way. You think you're that special? You falter under his stare, the question stinging like a wasp to your heart. Am I not? You ask faintly. Touya stares at you a moment, before irritation softens, and he looks away again. Special, but not stalker shrine special. You perk up. Then what kind of special am I? You were pushing your luck, and his patience, but could not stop yourself. Touya exhales, as though exasperated. Special like watching clouds on a cool summer's day, or like fireflies dancing over a pond on a spring night. Good enough for you? Your eyes widen, your heart thumped a bit louder at his words. You remember that? You whisper. Touya shrugged. Not a lot of happy memories in my childhood. I needed something to cling to. He turned to you, holding sorrow and exhaustion from years of suffering in sapphire crystals. I chose you. It wasn't some big confession, wasn't a proclamation to the gods that had turned their backs on him. It was his small truth, with the value of the sun to you. He'd chosen you, your memory, your friendship, to carry him through whatever hell he'd been through, a hell you hoped he would share with you one day, so that you may both traverse the nightmare torments. You've never been far from my mind, either, Touya, you admit, staring at your cheap ramen with a thoughtless, easy smile on your lips. Touya's eyes had shot to you, as though surprised by your admission, before schooling his features before the sky. From the moment you stepped onto the pier, you entered a distortion of reality, a bubble where Touya was not a villain, you were not a hero. You were childhood friends, catching up on the years they'd spent apart. But the small pond had evolved into the ocean before them, and though they tried to keep their little world isolated, reality pushed down on their precious bubble, forming cracks and allowing drops of grim aspects of their differences in. And when those moments occurred, they could not be ignored. Especially when Touya haggled his way over to you, with a limp, a sway, and a few bloody spots on his white t-shirt that gave you a mild heart attack. "What happened?" you demand, almost jumping to your feet, but stopped when Touya gracelessly fell to the ground beside you. He pulled out his cigarettes, hastily lighting one on his thumb, and wordlessly took a long drag. You glare in disbelief, simmering with irritation. You grab onto his coat roughly, startling him. "Hey, what do you think you're doing? Can't you tell this is designer?" he protested, as he attempted to squirm out of your grip. "Designed by raccoons, maybe," you mumble. "Come on, get this off. I want to see how bad it is." He grabs a hand holding his coat, clutching firmly and dislodging it. "I'm fine, just a tricky hero I dealt with." You sink back. Right. Sometimes, when Touya quirked his lips the slightest bit, or gazed at you with a soft patience, you'd forget what he was, what he did, what he was capable of. "Dealt with?" you question nervously. Touya flicks his eyes to you sharply. His voice holds an edge as he warns. "Don't ask questions you don't want the answer to, Firefly." "They're dead, aren't they?" you say, hollow. Touya clenched his jaw, irritation sparking in his eyes. "So what if they are? Shigaraki ordered it. I'm a villain. Did you forget?" You never forgot, just pushed the little fact far from their bubble, despite the thought that had plagued you since the beginning. "Touya," you begin gently, anxiously. "If Shigaraki ever asked you to kill me..." Toya's eyes widened. He pauses in time, stiff and cemented. But you wanted to make sure. You and him had been separated for so many years, possessed experiences that had shaped you into divergence. You may be special, but you are not so entitled to believe his connection to you outweighed his loyalty to the League. Should the choice be placed before him, you couldn't be sure he'd choose you, as much as you may have wanted him to. You force your lips to tug its corners into a smile. "Just don't make it painful, yeah?" Touya had stared at you, his mouth parted subtly, and his eyes indecipherable. He hadn't spoken another word, and though you'd followed your request with hurried, nervous chatter, your voice soon died out. You sat side by side with crashing waves filling the uncomfortable quiet. Your eyes traveled past the glamour of the city's glow, the centerpiece of the moment, to the reserved darkness of the sea, the absence of light, allowing the churning waters to conceal its secrets and dangers. One may make the choice to dip their legs into the unknown and be stung by a poisonous hydrozoan, just as we make our choices in life, ignorant to threats or what hazardous creatures lurks between one decision and the next. You knew the bubble would fracture. It was inevitable, expected, and dreaded. The cracking began with your addition to a squad, designated to invade a League of Villains base, speculated to hold the organization's leading members. Your day of reckoning had arrived, and you resigned yourself to your fate. The plans had been meticulously laid out on the wide, smart tables at the commission office. The roles of every hero drilled into memory. And yet, still, everything had quite literally gone up in flames. You couldn't help but wonder as your lungs burned from smoke, and you dragged yourself painfully to the exit, where or when the plan had gone wrong. Had it been before or after you had dealt with those impossible crystal twins, with their hard and brittle projectile weapons? You'd just beaten them when the fire had come bursting through the door, the explosion sending you flying against the paper walls and harshly to the ground. You had blacked out briefly, and the fire scattered to clog the exits. Escaping began to feel like a fool's dream. When you'd finally come to and heard the call for evacuation, you'd strained to return to your feet. Every breath scorched you from the inside. Every agonizing moment convinced you it would be your last. Gasping for air, you knocked down the door to a room, utilizing whatever remnant strength you had left and collapsing onto the door as it falls. The oxygen in this room had not yet been corrupted with smoke, and you gulped it desperately, as though you had merged the surface from a boiling sea. Preoccupied with fulfilling your need for clean air, you neglect to notice you were accompanied. Touya and Shigaraki stood, paused in their actions, and halfway to the next doorway. Touya's eyes sparked at the sight of you, but Shigaraki sneered. His red eyes churned with hatred. "How many of you NPCs are there? Dabi, kill them!" The bubble had shattered. Hero and villain faced each other now, in a moment that seemed long awaited and prolonged by fate. You struggled to stand, weakened from battle and oxygen deprivation, and make it only to one knee. Touya watches you stoically, and his eyes flicker. You meet them, hoping he'd remember your wish, believing their friendship meant enough to him to fulfill it. "Why are you taking so long?" Shigaraki screeched angrily. "Kill them so we can go!" The fire from the previous room consumed the threshold, and you glanced at the flames behind, and back to what will be the flames before you. Perhaps this was how it was always meant to end. Death by fire. What might have happened if you hadn't been prevented from leaping into the forest after Touya all those years ago. You awaited your delayed fate. However, Touya had not moved. He simply stared, hard sapphire softening into something subdued, accepting. Shigaraki's patience ran out. He advanced, snarling his irritation. "You're taking too long. I'll do it myself." As quick as lightning striking fire to a dry, withering tree, Touya's flames arched to block Shigaraki's path. Shigaraki had been caught off guard and stumbled into the corner of the room. Touya didn't hesitate to ignite the floor around him, caging him in blue flames. "What the fuck are you doing?" Shigaraki yelled, disbelief clouding anger. Touya ignored his shouts, hurriedly walking to a stupefied you on the floor, gaping. He yanked you up by your upper arm, placing it around his neck to hold you up. "Come on, we have to get out of here," he muttered as he urged you to walk towards the exit. Shigaraki screamed as they went. "I will find you, Dabi. I will make you pay for betraying us." Touya rolled his eyes as they left the room. He stopped only to shroud the door in blue flames, and then guided them down the hallway. Your brain struggled to process what had just happened, and you glanced back towards the room. Shigaraki's curses following them through the fire. "He won't come after us," Touya said, his focus on their way out. "At least not now, with the heroes surrounding the building." Despite Shigaraki being the main target of this operation, that was not your current concern. "You didn't kill me," you whisper. Touya glanced at you, the softened sapphires of his eyes seeming tired. "You really thought I would? For a guy who doesn't know what lotion is?" "Firefly, you really have grown stupid." You frown. There was more hidden in Toya's dismissive tone, but you didn't have time to dig through. Touya pushes through the final door that opened to a narrow alleyway. Out one of the open ends, you could see the red flickers of ambulance lights and the chatter of heroes, police, and paramedics. Touya leans you up on the brick wall, his eyes flickering over you with a small crease above his eyebrow. "You can call your buddies from here, right?" You nod slowly, reaching for your pager. "Yeah, but what's gonna happen to you? You can't go back to the League," you say worriedly. Touya shrugged, as though he hadn't been a part of them for years before you'd both reunited. "Shigaraki acts like a child anyway." "Touya." He meets your gaze. "Thank you," you say, pouring every bit of gratitude you can muster. He'd given up the place he'd belonged for you. A hero, despite his hatred of your kind. Touya stepped away from you. He took a deep breath before saying, tiredly, "I'm gonna get out of here before your comrades realize they missed one." He turned on his heel to leave, but you shout, suddenly, "Where are you gonna go?" Touya waved his hand without looking. "I'll figure it out." "Come home with me," you blurt. Touya stills and glances back at you with a raised eyebrow. "Going home with the hero? I think I'll pass." You pout. It was worth a try. "Well, if you change your mind," you tell him your address. He turns back to face the exit of the alleyway, and you watch his tense shoulders as he takes a suffering breath. "Just so you know, Firefly," he huffs, "I would have never hurt you," he says, before walking away, vanishing between the city's buildings. Hours drag like centuries in the hospital. You stew in annoyance as you wait to be cleared, debating whether the healers took pleasure in forcing you to lie there, staring at a mute TV and gradually inducing psychosis. Apparently, the Crystal Twins had done more than given you a few bruises. They had gifted you internal bleeding, which unfortunately meant a longer stay. When you were finally allowed to return home, you dived out the door, eager for your bed, and whoever may wait there. Only your home was devoid of any other human being. You drooped with disappointment, exhaling the hope you had to let resignment sink in. You should have expected Touya would not come. He was the most stubborn person you knew. Sighing again, you trudged to your bedroom and collapsed on your perfect bed. You were thankful you had showered and changed into comfortable clothing at the hospital, because once your eyes closed, sleep rushed over you like a wave in high tide. Coercing your body to remain awake for over 24 hours would do that to a person. You're dead to the world, exhaustion having taken your body hostage, and you were content to allow it, until a sound caused you to jerk awake. You blinked sleep from your eyes, noting that it was night. You couldn't hear anything at the moment, but trusted your training under underground hero Aizawa. You closed your eyes again briefly, contemplating whether to just allow whoever had broken in to steal whatever they want, if it meant you could stay in bed. But then you jerk upright with realization. You hop off the bed, running into the living room, excitement pumping through your veins from the sight of the person before you. There was Touya, lounging on the couch like he'd been there 1,000 times before, one of your books in hand as he read the cover. He glances over to you and nonchalantly says, "Nice place you got here, Firefly." Mind if I crash? Your lips stretch into a wide smile. Stay as long as you like.